We have just witnessed an extraordinary moment in American history. This January 6th Select Committee with both Democrats and Republicans. You hear a pause in the room right there on Capitol Hill, voting unanimously to send criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. They have just listed which referrals they are talking about, detailing them with specificity. It came from Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, who, of course, is on the committee there. And as we watch them shake hands, I want to get right to what they have just talked about involving the former president. One of the criminal referrals involves obstruction of an official proceeding. And as we heard from Congressman Raskin, he said, "We believe that the evidence described by my colleagues today and assembled throughout the hearings warrants a criminal referral of former President Donald Trump, John Eastman, and others for violating this statute." He says the whole purpose and obvious effect of Trump's scheme were to obstruct, influence, and impede this official proceeding. Second on the list for criminal referral is conspiracy to defraud, saying we believe there's sufficient evidence to refer former President Donald Trump, John Eastman, and others. The statute makes it a crime to conspire to defraud the United States. In other words, to make an agreement to impair, obstruct, defeat the lawful functions of the United States government by deceitful or dishonest means. The third criminal referral to the Department of Justice involves false statements. It says we make a referral based on, and they talk about the Title 18, Section 1001, which makes it unlawful to knowingly and willfully make materially false statements to the federal government. This evidence clearly suggests President Trump conspired with others to submit slates of fake electors to Congress and the National Archives. He goes on to say, we trust that the Department of Justice will be able to form a more complete picture through its investigation. And fourth, where you see right there in the graphic, insurrection was the fourth criminal referral. The fourth and final statute we invoke for referral. This statute applies to anyone who incites, assists, or engages in insurrection against the United States, or anyone who, quote, gives aid or comfort to an insurrection. Congressman Raskin going on to say the committee believes that more than sufficient evidence exists for a criminal referral of former President Trump for assisting or aiding and comforting those at the Capitol who engaged in a violent attack on the United States. The committee has developed significant evidence that President Trump intended to disrupt the peaceful transition of power. The president has an affirmative and primary constitutional duty to act, to take care that the laws will be, quote, faithfully executed. He went on to say nothing could be a greater betrayal of this duty than to assist in insurrection against the constitutional order. You heard Congressman Raskin go on to say one more thing, and this is significant because he suggests that there could be more to come from the Justice Department. He said these are not the only statutes that are potentially relevant to President Trump's conduct after the 2020 election, saying depending on evidence developed by the Department of Justice, the president's actions could certainly trigger other criminal violations. I want to bring in our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, for what we have just witnessed. And John, the breadth and scope of what they put forward is sweeping.
This committee conducted a thorough investigation, David. It lasted more than a year, more than 1,000 witnesses, interviewed under oath. This is not simply a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice will make its own judgment about whether or not to prosecute Donald Trump for crimes. What this is this is a committee, after conducting an investigation such as it is conducted, one of the most thorough we have seen of any single incident in American history, going on record saying that they believe the former president of the United States is guilty of multiple felonies, multiple crimes against the people of the United States. They wanted to be on record with that. They've marshaled their evidence, their report, with its appendices and accompanying transcripts of those sworn depositions will go on for thousands and thousands of pages. But the essential conclusion that they have offered is one that was offered by the vice chair of this committee, Liz Cheney, even before this committee was formed. And that is that Donald Trump was singularly responsible for what happened on these Capitol grounds on January 6th. That it would not have happened without him, and that he was the source. He was the reason it took place. He is the one who is ultimately responsible. And that, after all of their conclusions, is where they landed. And by the way, David, you and I watched those events take place. We watched them unfold on January 6th. We heard Donald Trump tell his supporters to go on down to the Capitol. We heard him say, "Fight like hell." We saw the rioters hang massive blue Trump banners off the west front of the Capitol building, even as they did battle with police to get inside the building. It was a judgment in many ways that was apparent to anybody who was watching as those events unfolded. Now it is a judgment officially entered by this committee of Congress.
And John, in addition to all of that presented by the January 6th committee, we also heard from the former Vice President Mike Pence when he sat across from me, and he talked at length not only about the weeks leading up to January 6th, but about the tweet while he was at the Capitol, in so many words saying Mike Pence has let us down, the chance of hang Mike Pence. And he said for the first time, and as you know, John, he talked about saying that the president's words not only put him and his family, but everybody at the Capitol at that day at risk.
Well, one of the most significant details, and there were many significant details that this committee uncovered over the course of their investigation, was just how close Mike Pence came to the very rioters that were chanting for him to be executed. At one point, they were just 40 feet away as he was being rushed outside of the area behind the Senate chamber to a safe location beneath the Capitol grounds. His life was very much in danger on that day, and this committee spent a great deal of time not just on what happened to the vice president on January 6th, but on the ways in which the president, the then president, Donald Trump, pressured Mike Pence to do something that was clearly unconstitutional. And that's another very important point about these final findings, the final report that the committee is issuing, and that is that they see this as a crime not just in terms of what happened on January 6th, but of the much broader effort, of which that was the culmination, a much broader effort by Donald Trump to illegally overturn a presidential election.
John Karl, who has been extraordinarily careful in his reporting throughout the many, many months of these hearings. John, I really appreciate it. Stick with us here. I want to get to Rachel Scott, who covers Congress for us. And Rachel, it's not lost on me that you were at the Capitol the day of the January 6th attack. I'm sure you have some observations about this very long 18-month process, this investigation, but you're also getting reaction at this hour from Republicans on the Hill.
Yes, David, I just spoke to a few Republican sources as this final hearing came to a close, because we did see this committee make some referrals to the House Ethics Committee when it comes to 4 members of Congress, 4 Republicans, who have defied the congressional subpoenas. Lawmakers on this committee wanted to talk to those Republicans about their conversations that they had with members of the White House, even the president himself. All of those Republicans defied those subpoenas and refused to speak with lawmakers on these committees. So Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, and Andy Biggs, all defying those congressional subpoenas. The House Select Committee now referring this over to the Ethics Committee. And I just got reaction just moments ago from Jim Jordan's office, who calls this another partisan and political stunt made by the Select Committee. So this overall just underscores how Republicans are approaching this. They have largely dismissed the committee and this work. They are going to dismiss the findings. And when it comes to these referrals that are now made over to the Ethics Committee to try to push the ball forward here, well, Republicans are going to take majority in the House come January 3rd. And so this move will largely be seen likely as a symbolic move by the House Select Committee. David.
And Rachel, you and I have talked at length about the officers who were there that day, and to see them sitting in that room again today, one of whom obviously is no longer an officer, says he lost his job because he could no longer serve. They not only sat down with us as a group for the first time a year ago, but for them to be in each one of these hearings, to watch this testimony firsthand. And, you know, they have said to a number of members of our team and to me sitting across from me that they wanted accountability, and they wanted accountability straight to the top. And they said, if that involves the former president, so be it.
Exactly. Accountability, David. It's a word that I've heard over and over again by talking to the officers that we saw sitting in the front row. You spoke with them exclusively for the one-year anniversary of January 6th. We've also seen them show up to all of these hearings because they wanted to show that they care about getting accountability, that they want answers. The nation has heard from these officers in their own words. And I talked to Sergeant Gunnell, who you see there wiping tears away from his eyes. He has been forced to retire after nearly 17 years on the force because of the injuries that he sustained by defending this very building on January 6th. Today, he was sitting in the front row as a civilian, entering the Capitol for the very first time after retiring. He just retired 2 days ago on Saturday, and he told me again, accountability is what he is looking for, that he hopes that members of Congress, that the American public take the findings from this committee very seriously, because what we saw here on January 6th was violence and chaos. It was an insurrection on our nation's capital. And it was my first day covering the Capitol Hill, David. And if there's anything that I know for sure, it's two things. One is that this building is forever changed by what happened here. You had members of the press, you had lawmakers fleeing for their safety. You heard from election workers who say that they don't even introduce themselves by their names anymore because of what happened in the days following January 6th. You see right there, Officer Eugene Goodman bravely guiding rioters away, just steps away from the Senate chamber. A heroic move there by him that likely saved lawmakers from coming face to face with the rioters who just stormed the building moments ago. And we learned from these hearings that those rioters were just 40 feet away from the Vice President of the United States. And the second thing that I know for sure, David, is that we just barely scratched the surface. From being here, from seeing the violence and the chaos unfold that day, we thought that we had a little bit of an idea of how this all happened. But with every single hearing, we have learned more and more. And lives have been forever changed, including those officers that you just saw who bravely defended the Capitol. And again, David, I'll say it one more time, accountability is all that they're looking for.
Rachel Scott, extraordinary reporting from you as well, Rachel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.